Jedi.
What's going on, guys? Back in another video. Would you believe me if I told you that Hot Toys has made over 50 different troopers from Star Wars? Well, believe it. In this video, we're going to be going down and ranking from worst to best. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying I'm not going to be including any named characters or characters with head sculpts because I feel like that would sort of put them at the top automatically. So characters such as Captain Rex or Scorch from the Bad Batch are exempt from this list. This is just troopers, characters you would buy multiples of. You're not going to buy more than one Captain Rex. That being said, let's get right into it. At the very bottom of the list, we have the Transport Trooper from The Mandalorian. I'm sorry, but I hate this thing. I think it's hideous. The green with the helmet that just doesn't aesthetically please me. Now, I know the ends sort of justify the means because you could buy this and put the Pedro Pascal head sculpt on it and recreate that scene from The Mandalorian, but man, it is ugly in my opinion, and that's why it's the bottom of this list. Next, we have a First Order Stormtrooper. I mean, I sort of lumped a lot of them together. I don't like the sequels. It's no secret. A lot of people don't. I think the design is pretty bad, so I don't really care for anything First Order, let alone just a standard First Order Trooper. Right after that, we have the Executioner Trooper. Same exact thing, but just a little bit different in terms of colorways. He has a little bit of black in his armor, and I guess that's less bad, but we're still at the bottom. The Jet Trooper, I guess it's kind of cool. He has a flamethrower, but as I said, all of these First Order sequel characters are going to be pretty low and pretty hard to rank ultimately. Sith Jet Trooper. It's the same, but red. At least they tried. At least it's not just plain white. Flame Trooper. Cool. Like I said, not a whole lot to say here. Then after that, we have the First Order Snow Trooper. Kind of hard to mess this up. It's not as terrible as the rest. Snow Troopers are cool. What can I say? Then we're moving on out of the sequels for the Assault Tank Commander. This is essentially the Transport Trooper, but in a different color from Rogue One. It's less hideous because it's not diarrhea green, but still, I just don't care for it. I just don't have any respect for a trooper that's wearing drawers. I mean, if he ain't got armor on his legs, have you ever heard of the femoral artery? Something that may be a little shocking is the Return of the Jedi Stormtrooper. I think this helmet mold just looks bad. It looks like a fish or a frog. I don't know what. I know that all the helmets from the OT were vacuum molded, and by the time they got to the third film, they pretty much lost all of them. So they had to make new ones, and it doesn't look good. That's why it's pretty low. Imperial Praetorian Guard. This is a copy of a copy. We all know where this was originated from, the OG Emperor's Guards. What can I say? I'm not a fan. Something may be a little shocking. The First Order TIE Fighter pilot is pretty high up compared to the rest of them. I think TIE pilots are cool. I think this is the less offensive out of all the First Order troopers. I'd love to see Hot Toys make an actual Imperial TIE Fighter pilot. Yeah. The Shore Trooper, again, not crazy about this helmet design. It's less offensive than the Assault Tank Commander and so on, but I'm just not big on vibrant looking colors. I don't know. It's not my favorite. Then we have the Obi-Wan Kenobi Purge Trooper. It's just like a mixed match of sequel Stormtrooper helmet with whatever. I don't like it. I mean, First Order Praetorian Guard, of course it's ahead of the Mandalorian one, but again, it's sort of a copy. Incinerator Trooper. It's just a Stormtrooper but with red. And after that, of course, is the Artillery Trooper. And the only reason that one's ahead of the Incinerator Trooper is I like mustard more than ketchup. Dark Trooper. I mean, they tried. It was all right. That episode was pretty cool, but I think it's just pretty forgettable. Now this figure is like worthless. You can probably get it for $100, especially since they gave it away for free from Sideshow. I'm not impressed. Now we have the Obi-Wan Kenobi 501st Trooper as seen in the Kenobi series. I don't want to be too critical on this figure because it is representative of actual live action suits that we never seen prior. I just don't like it. I think it's inferior to the OG Clone Wars 501st. Not really in terms of like the figure itself, but there's just little things that bother me. The fact that there is splits in the armor, because of course that would be how real people got the armor on. The removal of certain armor around the cod piece for movement that is just inaccurate to an actual clone trooper. And the high gloss. I mean, I feel like clone troopers should be more satin, not super glossy. And the biggest glaring thing that I can't stand is the color. It's teal. It's not blue. Now we have the black chrome Death Trooper. You're going to see a pattern here. A regular Death Trooper is just better. I think this turned out like not what it was sort of supposed to be. If I can remember, I think it's more like gray. I don't know. Not a fan. Now we have the chrome Stormtrooper. And then after that is the chrome Clone Trooper. Something that I think is a little bit cool is the bronze Stormtrooper. I think it's pretty. I mean, what can I say? These figures aren't going to be anybody's priority in terms of trooper collecting, but they're cool looking. And of course, we have the gold chrome Stormtrooper and the gold chrome Clone Trooper, respectively. Then we have the Mandalorian Stormtrooper Commander. It's just a Rogue One Stormtrooper with a pauldron that I believe you can remove and just have a regular trooper. A lot of these figures in the middle ground are just kind of hard to place. They're not terrible, but they're not like nothing to call home about. Then after that, it's the Mandalorian Scout Trooper. It's just a regular Scout Trooper, but dirty. I guess it just depends on your preference. Do you like them more clean? Do you like them more dirty? In this instance, I don't care for this figure as much as I would a normal, maybe a different trooper variant. Something that surprises me is I think the porcelain Stormtrooper is beautiful. I think it's super unique. I know that you probably can't ever find this thing, and if you do, it's going to be super expensive. Sort of a grail in troopers, maybe. If they would do more really out there stuff like this, maybe it'd be successful. I don't know. I think it's pretty. Then we have the Rogue One Stormtrooper. Again, it's pretty decent. It's different than the Return of the Jedi helmet mold. I think this is they did a lot of Stormtroopers with this helmet mold, so that speaks for itself. Now we have the Jedi Patrol Stormtrooper. Again, Stormtrooper with a pauldron. Can't go wrong there. Imperial Commando, one of those limited figures that nobody really wanted. They would rather have had the plain white Imperial Commando, which we're going to get next year or later this year maybe, but I just don't care for the proportion. The armor just doesn't look the way I picture it in my head. I know they later improved upon it with Scorch and the new Republic Commando, but yeah, people that pick this up are probably going to want to get rid of it when that new one comes out. Actually, we have the Jedi Patrol Stormtrooper TK14057. If you know, you know. It's the same thing we saw earlier, but with a little bit more stuff on his backpack, an orange pauldron. It's pretty cool. We have the Night Trooper from the Ahsoka series. What can I say? Maybe it should be lower. I don't know. I like they tried at least, right? It's a little bit unique. It may look cool in your display. And then, of course, right after that is the Night Death Trooper, or whatever you want to call it, the Undead Death Trooper, which is really cool. Has the swap out zombie sculpt, so it's a little bit better than what came before it. Now we have the Death Watch Mandalorian, another figure that is, a dime a dozen, so to speak. They really shoot themselves in the foot with these sort of characters by not giving more swap out parts. I know on this figure they included, I think, another thigh piece, but if you were to give us more, I'm not saying a whole helmet, but maybe a dome piece of a helmet, I don't know. Sort of a way to entice collectors to buy more than one, where they don't look completely identical. Then after that, we have the Mandalorian Super Commando, or Maldalorian, whatever you want to call it. Again, same sentiments that I said prior. Swap out parts would have been cool. Removable horns would have been cool. I don't know. And of course, this figure is overpriced. Do not pay $265 or full price for this thing. It's not worth it. Now we have the Jedi Survivor Scout Trooper Commander. You put a pauldron on a trooper, it looks cool. Plus, he's got a little electro staff thing. This is only the second figure from Jedi Fallen Order, Jedi Survivor that we've got. Where the hell is Cal Kestis? Now we have the Remnant Stormtrooper from The Mandalorian. I don't know what it is about this figure. I just think it's really cool. Something about seeing a figure that every 9 times out of 10 stormtroopers are clean and shiny, but seeing this one that's just beat to hell just is really cool to me. That's why it's where it's at on this list. And we have the clone trooper pilot. I love clone troopers, but this figure is kind of boring. You're not going to really army build this. I don't know, maybe you get a couple and put the phase 1 helmet on one and then the phase 2 on the other, but it's not very exciting. Then we have the jump trooper, and of course after that is the space trooper. Nothing wrong with these figures, but what can you do? Next we have the ARF trooper. My only downside with this figure is it's behind a paywall. Why are they doing this? There's like 3 or 4 figures on this list that you have to spend $500, $600, $700 to get the figure. Stop doing that, Hot Toys. And of course after that we have the heavy weapons clone trooper, which, as I just said, is cool. It's pretty much Commander Cody's helmet but blue, but you're going to spend $700 to get it, so that sucks. Next up we have the regular Death Trooper. I think this is probably the best trooper design we've seen from Disney Star Wars. What can I say? Then we have the Patrol Trooper from Solo. A lot of people consider this a grail, maybe. I don't know. I've seen stuff where people talk about it and put it on a pedestal. I think it looks pretty cool. I really don't know what it is. The green visor, it kind of hits different. Next up, we have the Coruscant Guard. What can I say? Clone Troopers are cool. Coruscant Guard is cool. It's iconic, but not as iconic as some of the later figures we're going to get to on this list. After that, we have the Umbra Operative ARC Trooper. This thing is beautiful. I jumped in on it and fell in for the hype. You get 3 different helmets. I think that's a really good selling point, but ultimately, I didn't have an attachment to it, so I sold it. But for those that, are diehard trooper collectors, this is definitely a piece that you're lucky to have. And it's unique. It's going to have some shelf presence. After that, we have the Shock Trooper, Stormtrooper. I mean, what can I say? This thing is awesome. I think it looks cooler than the actual Coruscant Guard Trooper. And then, of course, we have the Death Trooper Specialist. A Death Trooper, but better because he's got a pauldron and hella Emma pouches. Again, one of the coolest trooper designs Disney has done. And this figure was for a long time considered a grail, but unfortunately, the pauldron will rot on you and it's just messy. Forgot to add this when I was recording, but we have the Purge Trooper Commander from Jedi Survivor. I mean, airborne helmets go hard. Next up, we have the Royal Guard. Emperor's Royal Guard, I mean, iconic. Probably super expensive. I don't know what the secondary market is for every figure, but I've seen, $500 for one of these. I don't know. Probably pretty expensive on the secondary market. A lot of people want 2, because you got to have 2 if you're going to have any. And what can I say? It's pretty high up because it's iconic. And after that, we have the Episode 2 Clone Trooper. The only reason this isn't higher is because it's marketed as Episode 2, but the Phase 1 helmet is not as good as it should be. It's a little over big. The whatever you want to call it on the mouth part, whatever, is inaccurate. I still love it. I think it's cool, but I can't objectively put it as high as I would like it to be. But you get a Phase 2 helmet, and that looks pretty damn good. And after that, we have the Shadow Trooper, recently just re-released. I wish I had a reason to buy this figure or a couple of them. There's something about a trooper that's blacked out just looks sick. If Hot Toys ever makes a blacked out clone trooper, I'm in trouble. Yeah, what can I say? This thing is awesome. And after that, we have the OG Return of the Jedi Scout Trooper. What I think is probably the best Scout Trooper on this list. It doesn't have any bells and whistles. It's not overly dirty. If you get a speeder bike, you've got a great piece in your collection. Next up, we have the Sand Trooper from A New Hope. I mean, it's classic. It's OG. The frown on the helmet that, it's sort of considered canon now, but it really was just because the helmet was defective and deformed. I know that there is a Sand Trooper Sergeant that just came out with a dewback. I would love to have that piece. It's beautiful, but it's a lot of money, and I just don't have the space. It's not for me. That being said, Sand Troopers are on this list this high up for a reason. Next up, we're in the top 3. We have the Snow Trooper. when this figure gets re-released or 2.0'd, it's going to sell. I mean, everybody wants snowtroopers. They look sick. I don't know what it is about them that is just badass. I would love to see sort of the predecessor to this and see the Galactic Marines. Something just about the helmet or lack thereof just goes hard. These figures you probably go for a lot of money. Now, number 2, we have the 501st Clone Trooper. Now, wait. Before you freak out, I am interjecting my bias, but I have merit. I have something to back it up. I would love to see the sales or the numbers on this figure. I would love to see how many were sold because, you know, the 501st being iconic, being one of the most heartbreaking and badass scenes in the prequel trilogy, notwithstanding, people love the Clone Wars. And I have seldom seen collectors, you know, that have a lot of figures that don't have multiples of these. I mean, as I said, I would love to see how many of these were sold because I bet it's a shit ton. I bet it's probably up there with the highest trooper sales from Hot Toys, if not the highest, because I mean, several collectors I've seen have, you know, 4 or 5, a dozen. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. I have 2 myself, and I think that's kind of silly. But yeah, you know, 501st Clone Trooper, you get the swap out 332nd helmet if you really want to do that, and it comes with you know, an accurate 501st Phase 1 helmet. But I think these are essential. Referring back to my last video, these are essential to your collection if you love the prequels, if you want to portray what I consider one of the best scenes in the prequel trilogy. Yeah, they're up here. They're number 2 for a reason. And number 1, I have to do this. I have to be this way. Is the OG Stormtrooper. And what I mean by OG is there have been several different Stormtrooper helmet molds, etc., that Hot Toys have done, but the OG, I think this is MMS 2 something. It's one of the earlier Star Wars figures they did. It's like over 10 years old. The helmet mold just looks good, and the same helmet mold was used for several figures. For example, they recently just used it for the re-release of the Shadow Trooper. They used it for the Shock Trooper, etc. Then, of course, you've got the Rogue One mold, which isn't bad. I think it's pretty decent. It looks pretty good. We talked about that earlier. And the bastard child is the Return of the Jedi mold. So if you're going to get Stormtroopers, try to find this figure, or maybe they'll, you know, redo it. But I personally think that the OG, A New Hope Stormtrooper helmet mold is the best. Stormtroopers are the most iconic troopers in Star Wars. They've been around for nearly 50 years. It would be disrespectful and disgraceful for me to say that this is not the number 1 Hot Toys trooper that they've done. That's it, guys. I'd love to know what you think. What is your favorite, or you think is the best trooper the Hot Toys has done, and what do you think is the worst? Are you disappointed with this list, or do you agree with it? I'd love to know what you think down in the comments below. As always, thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.